What's happening, everyone? My name is James Lynch, and this is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Always great catching up with my next guest here, Dave Hull from the Canucks Army. The Canucks are in the news for all the wrong reasons right now. The state of the team. I mean, a much different conversation than we had the last time you were on here, Dave. Obviously, things are really in the spotlight now. Quinn Hughes, is he going to get traded? What's the team's direction? The message seems to be changing all the time. But obviously, the big thing was the game on on Sunday against the Flames, which was maybe one of their worst efforts of the year. So first and foremost, Dave, how you feeling? How's everything?
Pretty much exactly how I, as a Canucks fan should feel, and unfortunately I'm a guy who follows Abbotsford Canucks quite extensively. So, through and through, I'm just getting hit on every angle right now from, bouncing from Vancouver Canucks to Abbotsford Canucks. And so it's a tough time to be a fan, especially after, such a positive couple of years. It seemed like things were on the right trajectory, but seems like we're back to square one here. So it's about as good as I could be.
Yeah, and a lot of Abbotsford focus this week, obviously, because we find out that Kevin Lankinen has left the team due to personal reasons, and we now have a combination that we saw in the AHL earlier this year with Yuri Patera and Nikito Tilopolo. What's sort of been the read on them this year? I know Patera's barely got any time at all as far as like game time and all that. What can fans sort of expect from this tandem going forward and in the interim anyways?
Well, the one thing I will say about both Patera and Tolopilo is, I would try hard not to, go on Elite Prospects and check out or DB and check their stats and say they've been terrible. They've actually been pretty damn good. In Abbotsford right now, it's kind of one of those things where I would check into more of the kind of saves they've made rather than their actual counting stats because they're just getting no help up front of them. So Tolopilo has actually looked very good. He's missed a lot of time. He just played a back-to-back games, but he missed before that. He had missed about 4 weeks with a groin injury. So he's still coming off an injury. He's only 2 games in, but he's been good. If he wasn't injured, he was probably the guy getting called up ahead of Patera the first time around. And then as for Patera, I mean, we saw what he did in Florida. Obviously, he gave up a ton, but he wasn't terrible. And that's kind of been the case in Abbotsford as well. He's been good. He's made saves when he's need to, but he just hasn't gotten the help in front of him, as is the case with basically all 4 of the Abbotsford Canucks actually all 5 goalies that have seen time in Abbotsford this year. So, they've been good. I would expect Tolopilo gets the starts over Patera now that he's back up there, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Who's even the starters in Abbotsford right now?
It'll be Ty Young and Aku Koskenvuo. Contrary to what I just said, and don't look at the counting stats, Ty Young has struggled this year. Not only is he not getting help, but he's also not helping his team much out the gate, which is a shame because he had a really remarkable season last year. And, there's a lot of positive talk about him. But this year, he's just struggled for whatever reason it is. It just seems like, his rebound control has just been a little weak. He's been giving up some soft goals. And so Aku Koskenvuo comes in and, suddenly he's the talk of the town. And, he might be the guy getting the bulk of the starts this weekend as they're in Tucson. So.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how that tandem sort of goes going forward. But let's stick with the big club. A lot of people wondering, sort of what the direction is of the team right now. I think we both might be wondering what the direction of the team is. But Elliot Friedman mentioning the other day that, the veteran players are available for the Canucks. So, you go to the obvious names. You got Kiefer Sherwood, obviously going to be UFA next year. You got Evander Kane. There's been some talk about Tyler Myers, but my understanding is he loves it in Vancouver. He's got a no-trade clause, so that's going to be a lot tougher. Does Connor Garland get moved? I'm not sure if he has a no trade clause. I'm not sure the deal. Do you actually know if he does? I can't remember actually. If he has
no, off the top of my head.
Yeah. Well, I'll check it out on Puckpedia in a second here. But, I don't mind this because obviously what is on the ice is not working, injuries aside. Like, I can understand if the injuries were like Hughes and Pettersson and some of like the big like movers of the team. But, you can't just say that you're, this is a team that, it would be such a big difference if Teddy Bluger was in the lineup, which I know he helps with the penalty kill and that certainly would make a difference. But I think it's pretty obvious that this group that has been assembled here is not going to get it done. And it's not even going to get it done to the point of where they could make the playoffs. So were you a little bit encouraged by that? Again, I know actions, got to come into play here as opposed to just words, but I thought when I heard them say, we're going to, trade veterans for younger players, at least that sounds a little bit better than them saying, no, we're just going to keep what we got.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, that's a great way to put it. Like, actions do speak louder than words, so we'll see what actually happens here, or if that's, just kind of a memo that, good old savvy Jim Rutherford is just putting out to the ethers to kind of kick his players into gear. We'll see, we'll see what his angle is. But I agree. I think at this point, this has kind of been my stance all season long. Pavel Zacha comes up in trade talks, all these quote unquote potential 2Cs, probably 3Cs in, not short order, come up. And for me, it's like, okay, so even if they do make those trades, does Pavel Zacha win this team a Stanley Cup? Whether it's this year, whether it's next year, my opinion is no. So why are we trying to beat a dead horse right now and, trying to force something that might just be not there? This, they gave it a try. Obviously the trajectory changed with the whole JT Miller instance, and suddenly things just might not be working right now. And so, I'm a little biased. I'm the prospect guy. So, obviously I'm all for to recouping as many younger assets and going for something new. But the nice thing is, it doesn't have, we keep talking about rebuild and, full blown rebuild. But the nice thing is the slate doesn't have to be completely wiped clean. They have some good pieces. We even see at the moment, we got Tom Wielander and Elias Pettersson on the back end. You got Lech Karamaki. You've got guys like Braden Coots and Alexei Medvedev as a goalie. So they still have pretty high-end pieces that, at least make up a good mold of, not so distant future rebuild. So at least there are some pieces. So now if you can kind of insulate that with some a little bit higher, a little bit older, but still young pieces, I think it's the way to go.
Well, and I agree with you here, and this is the thing where I kind of push back. And by the way, I just had John's comment up there. Garland does have a no move clause, but we've seen I don't know what it is. I guess this management group could work in policing, because they do a good job of convincing players. Otherwise, they got Kuzmenko to waive his no trade. They've had a bunch of players that they've been able to sort of, I think Mikheyev was another one where they've been able to kind of move pieces if they need to. So we'll see if that ends up happening. But I'm with you, because here's the thing. Like I think of the belief of a lot of people that this entire core is not going to get it done. So maybe you go and start moving some pieces. The problem is, in this day and age with the NHL, you see a lot of teams unwilling to part with certain everyday NHL players because they themselves need that. So I think kind of the way to look at it is, I don't mind if you start plucking off some of these players. Like I think we all agree here, you have to trade Kiefer Sherwood. Like there's no reason. I know he's a good locker room guy and we love him, and he reminds me a bit of like, Matt Cook back in the day, or Alex Burrows, like one of those types of like, energy players that really, is a locker room guy. But, sell him while he's high. I think if you look at the underlying numbers, he's probably not going to maintain what he's doing, and the way he plays with the physical side of things, that's not exactly something that's going to be long term for him there. So I think those are the type of moves that I think fans would be more happy about. I think fans would be upset if they kept him, despite how much of a good locker room guy he is. But kind of getting to my next question, like, what are some, just kind of looking at this team, like where would be some first orders for you? Because for me, it would be Sherwood, get something for, to me, Kane, you just got to get rid of him. Like, I just don't think, and I know there's been articles about, how, he's helped out the production a little bit, but he takes too many penalties. Like, I just think at this point, it's more of a liability than having him on the roster. Like, where do you stand on that as far as if you were management and you were trying to get rid of some of the players, who would you sort of start with?
Yeah, I think you nailed it with Kiefer Sherwood. I think he's on a heater, and we love it. He's obviously a fan favorite, and it's obvious why. But I think that's the exact reason why you got to sell high. That's something that this organization has not done a great job at doing in the past, and I think. I will give Jim Rutherford and Jim Rutherford credit that in his history, he's been pretty good at that. So I think if there's anyone that's aware that that's the kind of action that needs to be taken, it's probably him. So I think that's definitely a guy that you get rid of. At this point, we might even be talking about a first round pick, if not a second. So you're still getting a decent pick for him. And I just think, if this is the direction they're going, that's how it has to be. I pretty much agree with everything you just said, to be honest. Another guy, obviously Lucas Reichel has been one of those.
He's the Lyndon Vey of 2025, like these, buy low, hope that it works out, right? Type
yeah,
thing.
exactly.
Although, and I will say that Reichel had a higher pedigree, though, obviously being a higher pick.
Yeah, and like with Reichel, I wouldn't mind seeing him on the wing a little bit before they just completely ship him off for peanuts. And it is what it is. He does bring some speed, so let's maybe see what he can do on the wing, but I'm not expecting any game breaker there. So he'd be a guy. Evander Kane, as you said, he's a little bit slower now. He's just not the player that he was as early as last year, it seems. So he's a guy, but what are you really getting for an Evander Kane right now? His season hasn't been a glowing report on where he's trending. So maybe on the back end, you got a guy like Tyler Myers. If you can convince him that, yes, I know you're tied here, but still come home in the summers, kind of like the Alex Sedler effect where, just go enjoy, go win for your last couple seasons. Maybe they can convince him otherwise, but yeah, I think right now Kiefer Sherwood is definitely the number one. He's a guy that you have to target to trade pretty much as soon as you can, because he's having a hell of a year. So
Yeah, and I think with Kane, like honestly, I think you maybe try and get a pick for him, and then you just dump that salary. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, I know the salary is going to go off the books anyways, but you could even like retain some salary on Kane and just get something for him as opposed to him just leaving. But I just don't think he's going to be fitting in the long-term plans here for the team, right?
Yeah,
so I think
get a 6th round pick, 5th round pick, whatever it is.
Yeah, I agree, and I just think at this point it's about looking forward and figuring out who's going to want to be here. Now, here's an interesting thing because obviously, and it's funny because as I'm talking to you right now, I'm in a group chat with a bunch of my Canucks friends, and they're talking about like Elias Pettersson. Obviously, he's had like a resurgence here. I'm kind of on the fence about if you trade him at this point. Like he obviously has value now because he's bounced back a bit, but I don't think you can get rid of everyone here. Like to me, it's like you got to sit down with these players and go, are you going to be part of this vision where it might take us a bit longer to where we get to, but we are going to try and improve this team and get younger. And if players don't want to be a part of that, then that's where you could say, okay, let's go. But here's the other thing that's been in the news as well. Like if you try and rebuild, sometimes rebuilds don't work. Look at Buffalo. Like in terms of like, Pettersson, we know for the most part is going to be, I think, okay. Will he ever get back to the old Pettersson? Maybe not, but he's still a capable player. Sometimes if you draft high in the first round, you might still not get that guy. That's the issue I worry about, where it's like, you can't just trade everyone and then hope everything works out. It might not, right?
No, exactly. Like there's no guarantee in either. It's kind of a damned if you will, damned if you don't situation. Because as things are right now, as we just talked about, nothing's guaranteed that this team is going to be anything positive anytime soon. So I think it's, they're kind of in a rock and a hard place. But I do agree that if there's even a glimmer that, let's say obviously Quinn Hughes is the big talk right now. If there's even a slight glimmer that he's gone, I think regardless, you got guys like Connor Garland, who he's obviously one of the my favorite Canucks right now. He's the driver of this team, but I think he's getting older as well. He might be, creeping up to his highest ceiling possible. Guy like Jake DeBrusk, do you maybe get rid of him? But Brock Besser, like I know they just re-signed him, but I do think it's time to start thinking of getting rid of some of them. I agree. Pettersson is young enough, and obviously Quinn Hughes as well, where they're not only young enough but skilled enough where you can still maybe use them as your catalyst to build around and keep some veteran pieces. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's got to happen pretty quick. Like I know that they've put out a couple statements now. It sounds like they might try to be working quicker than make something happen sooner than later.
Yeah, which I don't mind, by the way. Like one of the things I do enjoy about this management group more than the Benning era is that they will move quickly and make trades, and that's something. I think they've made the most trades out of any team, I think, since they've come aboard here, which I don't mind. I mean, obviously they've tried to fix old mistakes, like they signed Danton Heinen, it doesn't work out, they trade him like by year's end. Curtis Lazar was another one too that comes to mind, but I don't mind that. Like they're trying to improve and get better, and I think that certainly makes sense. So the Quinn Hughes thing's interesting because I don't know if you heard this morning. I think it was this morning. Frank Saravalli now mentioning that people that he's heard from close to the team says that Hughes wants to stay. So now it just adds another wrinkle to this. I'm kind of at the point where I think first choice is you try and keep Hughes, just because again, there's no guarantee you ever get a player as good as this ever again, and then you build around Hughes, and that's how you sort of go about it. Now, if you have to trade him, I don't think that's the worst idea either, because you have this core that obviously isn't getting it done, and they keep running it back. So they've got to make some big changes. And if you trade Hughes, you're not going to get the full value back of what you get, but you might be able to, get some prospects, some picks that maybe turn into something. I mean, it reminds me of Pavel Bure. They ended up getting Ed Jovanovski out of that deal, right? Yep. So these are things you kind of have to look at as far as like what could potentially go out there. But I don't know. I'm of the belief, like, I know they've mentioned like I just don't think you wait until the summer. I think you need to do this either, after, like, maybe not Thanksgiving, but Olympic break for sure. I think they've got to know if he's in, he's in, if he's out, he's out. And then the other worry is, what if he goes short term? That still messes things up, because it's like, well, if you're only here for 3 years, like what do you do? So I don't know. Just what's your thoughts on Hughes right now? Where do you think this is headed?
Well, okay, so my thoughts on a couple things. So with Hughes, like, my big thing is that no matter, like, this is why starting a season, you got everyone saying, you got to keep Quinn Hughes happy. Everything that needs to be done has to be to make Quinn Hughes happy. I agree. He obviously he is number one. We all want Quinn Hughes to stay. That's just obvious. But at the same time, you can't. Like, even if Quinn Hughes wants to stay, I don't think this team should keep. I still think they should go ahead with moving, your Sherwoods, your Connor Garland, your Brock Pesters. Like, I still think they should implement, start the transition of maybe not a full blown rebuild, because obviously if you have Quinn Hughes, it's a little bit of a different approach. But I still don't think his decision should affect your game plan going forward. I still think it's privy of them to start thinking about the future. But I'm pretty sure I said it last time I was on. Like, I'm of the belief that, there's been a lot of talk of that Quinn Hughes wants to go play with his brothers, and I'm sure that's true. He probably does want to play with his brothers. Why wouldn't you? But at the same time, there's been no indication that this is actually a thing. He can't talk about this until next summer. He's got his agent in his ear, basically telling him, hey, it's a contract, we got to talk contract next summer. So you can't talk about whether you want to stay or not, because that just kills our position. So he's sitting there. He hasn't said a single word of whether he wants to go right now. And so for me personally, I've tried not to get so bent up. Obviously it's a good talking point, and, in the media, we have to talk about it. But at the same time, it's kind of tough, because we don't even know, like, he might be okay with a rebuild, and he's a legacy player and just wants to keep, he's the captain of the Vancouver Canucks, and he wants to keep that going. But my big thing is that, obviously, if there's an inkling that he wants to go, then you trade him before the trade deadline. That's just, like, as you said, don't wait till the summer. Get him out of there. His value is going to be the highest. Heck, even retain a little bit. Could you imagine retaining $1 million or $2 million on Quinn Hughes and a team getting him for $5 million for the next two seasons, or season and a half? So obviously if there's an inkling, you get rid of him. But even if they don't get rid of him, I still don't think that should change the way they're thinking long term, and keeping guys like Kiefer Sherwood and Connor Garland or Brock Besser, whoever it is, as much as I hate to say that.
Well, and I think, again, we got to see the actions that follow this, but I think it was encouraging that they are saying, hey, we're trying to get younger. And that's always how the mentality should be when things aren't working. Just, try and move forward as opposed to backwards. And here's the thing, like, I've seen a lot of different, scenarios out there of where Hughes wants to go. Like, here's the thing with New Jersey. And I know this was like a total accident, but like, Jack Hughes is out again. And I know this wasn't like something he did on the ice or that he's injury prone, but it does hurt the Devils in terms of their overall like goals and what they want to do. And players get older every year, and the contracts are still there, and they still got to move money too. Like, that's the thing I think people are kind of losing sight of. Yeah, like you were just saying, like, you could retain salary and trade him, and maybe that's intriguing. But yeah, Dougie Hamilton, like, you got to figure out what's going on there. Like, who's going to take that salary and take him at this point? I don't think it's as easy as people think. Then I heard people talking about the Flyers. Is that really a better scenario than what Vancouver's in right now? Like, I go read Flyers Twitter right now. A lot of people are not happy about how things are going. In fact, I saw Frank Saravalli yesterday talking about how, like, why are they trying to make the playoffs? Like, you should be continuing to get younger, build, traded Konechny, some of these other names. So I just think that people, I don't know, from what I'm seeing on Twitter and everything, I think people are very naive as to like what is a better situation. Obviously, like an Anaheim or something, teams that are on the up, like a San Jose, Chicago, whatever, understandable there. But I just don't think that, New Jersey's necessarily like a slam dunk. I don't know.
The thing is, though, like you just mentioned, three perfect teams: Anaheim, San Jose, Chicago. Yeah, it's fun right now. But if you want that, you need to be ready to face some shitty times, and pardon my language. There was some bad.
Swear away. We're an all ages show in here, so it's all good.
You need to be ready and prepared to really know what that means. Like, the last couple of years in San Jose and Anaheim and Chicago have been bad and grim. And so, for markets, maybe not so much Chicago, but for a market like San Jose and Anaheim, they can get away with that because they're not too worried about playing bad hockey for a few years. But for Vancouver, like, are you really ready for a full-blown rebuild? I'm not so sure. So that's why I'm saying, like, at least they still have the pieces like a Tom Wielander. You got, Alexei Medvedev a couple years down the road in goal, who, from all my viewings, I hate to say right after the draft plus one season, but he looks incredible. So they've got pieces at least to kind of to look forward to. So it's not a full-blown rebuild in my eyes, because there are some pieces that are still here. But like I said, be ready for it. But sorry, to go back to your original question about New Jersey. I don't actually think it happens. I don't think it's realistic to think New Jersey happens. I think it's a pipe dream. I think it's obviously a good narrative to swing, because obviously they want to play with the brothers. But I just don't see how you happen. You just signed Luke Hughes to to a big contract. They play a similar style. So now are you just going to bury Luke Hughes and play second fiddle to Quinn? Because Quinn Hughes, if he's coming in, he's playing everything. And then, you got to bring Dougie Hamilton back because he's on the books for another 3 years, if I'm not mistaken. So I just don't know how they make it work. I mean, if they're going to make it work, they're going to have to give up the entire world that's beneath them to get Quinn Hughes. So.
Yeah, and I think Canucks have leverage. Like I said, if they handle this earlier and, Hughes isn't coming back, you mentioned the 2 playoff runs, you mentioned the retained salary. It's a very unique position to be in. So It's not ideal. Obviously, we've said this countless times on here. You keep Hughes if you can, but it's, again, this could change the direction of the franchise very quickly if they do decide to go that route. Couple other things. Arthur Seelov's obviously having a very good year in Pittsburgh, and I think a lot of fans, even though it sucked that he didn't end up, staying here and things didn't work out, you have to feel happy for that. Yep. Do you still think, though, that, like, I don't know, because I think where a lot of people lose sight of things is that he had his audition last year and it didn't work out, and they kind of felt like we've got this great pipeline, like you mentioned, even with Medvedev that they drafted. Like, it seems like that's always been a position of strength for them. While he's doing great in Pittsburgh, I don't think he's being like Demko either, or being like Ottinger or any of these like top goalies. I think he's doing what he's supposed to do and he's performing well. But I guess my question to you is kind of looking back, like, could the Canucks have done anything differently? Like, I don't think people could have really predicted this based off what happened last year.
No, I mean, the one thing they could have done differently is not sign Lankinen.
That's true.
That would be the only difference in how this situation played out. Once you sign Lankinen to what they did, there's no room for Artur Silovs. You're not going to have another year of how he's been working, AHL, hopefully to get a sniff, as a call up. Obviously, looking back in hindsight now, he would have gotten his chances quite a bit this season. But I just think that's that's hindsight, and that's the only difference. Once Lankinen was signed, Artur Silov had to go, and at that point, the leverage was gone. So the fact that they even recouped, I think, was a positive trade, and like you said, good for him. He's playing well. I don't know if he's still going to be a star in this league. So it sucks for now, but I don't know. I don't think there's anything you could have done differently with that.
Yeah, and kind of hindsight as well. We were talking about selling high. Like, they could have sold Lankinen last year. Imagine the Oilers having Lankinen right now with all the issues that they're going with as well. Yeah. What have you made of this season as a whole? It's been really weird, and I know the condensed schedule has obviously played a role in this, but you've got Toronto struggling. You've got Edmonton struggling. They lost again last night. I think Skinner letting in, 3 goals and 3 shots or something crazy like that. Like, I think it's inevitable they're going to get Binnington or some goalie at this point. But, of all years for the Canucks to be bad, they're in interesting company with teams that had way higher expectations. So what do you make of sort of the parity this year that we haven't really seen in a while?
It's the changing of the guards. It seems like, it's gone topsy-turvy. And I think a part of me wonders if this is what the 32 teams in the league kind of does. It kind of, in my opinion, it kind of not evens the playing field, but maybe saturates the league a little bit, which is why I do caution them, expanding even further, at least in the short term. I just think this is what you get when you go to 32 teams. There's, the talent is just going to be spread around. The money's going up. But yeah, it's just, I'm okay with it. I personally, I like to see a little bit of a change every couple of years. I mean, obviously, if like, whenever you ever stayed up till at 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday and get excited to watch Anaheim, San Jose, like, that's a marquee game right now, and I think that's great. And I think it's good. I don't know if it's great for the Canucks because they seem to be kind of stuck in the mushy middle here, where where the heck are they even going? So I don't think it's great as a follower of the Canucks, but I think for the league, I think it's good. I think it's nice. It's nice to have parity, in my opinion, and it's nice to get some changing of the guards at least every couple years, right? So it's not just the same teams over and over again. And dynasties are fun, but it's also nice to see some change in there.
Let's get to a couple questions here, and then we'll wrap things up in a little bit. Sure. Mr. Kangaroo says, hi. Thank you, Mr. Kangaroo. What does PD need to do to bounce back? I mean, he's still very young. I think, again, just, well, what's sort of your take on his?
Yeah, I mean, he's young. I mean, at the same time, you have to realize he's also paired up with Tom Wielander too. So he's considered the veteran on that third pairing right now. And so I just think times are tough. I have a hard time. He does need to be better. Obviously, the flash of last year seems to have kind of dipped down. Confidence is a hell of a drug. And so when you start getting to some, down on some confidence, especially in the NHL now, I think you might just need a pick me up, which is really hard to catch right now on either Abbotsford or Vancouver. So there's really no perfect situation for him to be in. I just think he's just got to weather the storm and just continue. Like I said, he's being paired right now with Tom Wielander most of the time. And so, that's two basically rookie defensemen trying to navigate their systems right now. And so I just think be patient with him. He's still a young buck, he impressed the heck out of everyone last year. And, it might have been to his demise. Maybe it was a little too quick. Like, I personally thought he was going to be in Abbotsford all of last season, and he ends up just being a stud right out the gate, comes in halfway through the year, and, the rest is history. But at this point, you don't want to drop him back because, it's not much better down there, kids. So we'll just see how it goes.
And on that note, I know Lekkerimäki's been playing for Abbotsford. Is there any talks about him coming back up, or what? I know he was injured, obviously, but is there any sort of timeline if he's going to return to the big club?
He's been good. I mean, in Abbotsford, he's been he's been a breath of fresh air. Obviously, he's basically the only he's instantly brought in a bunch of offensive punch to this team. I think my personal opinion is that they're probably going to go a little bit slower with him, let him gain his confidence back a little bit. I mean, heck, they might even be doing Manny Malhotra a bit of a favor here and just saying, you know what, well, we understand it's been a tough year. We'll just keep him down because right now things aren't going great in Vancouver anyways. So, he's still coming back. He's, conditioning is a little bit of a thing. He was a little bit better last weekend, but you can tell a little bit of long shifts. He looked a little gassed out there. So it could just still be part of the whole conditioning stint plan. But who knows? Maybe they're throwing Manny a little bit of a bone right now. They're still on a 6-game road swing. So we'll see what happens at the end of this weekend.
Great question here from John, and something I forgot to bring up. But yeah, of all years for this to happen to the Canucks, because I mean, usually when the Canucks, the usual story with the Canucks is they just missed the playoffs and they're going to get a high draft pick. This year, I mean, we are getting closer to that reality of them being near the bottom of the league, which of all years to do this is one of the strongest draft classes we've seen in a while. You got to imagine management's got to be thinking that too, where it's like, okay, look, like we got to figure out this Hughes thing. Then after this Hughes thing, it's like, might not be the worst thing to be at the bottom of the league. And here's the other thing, Dave, is that other teams are not doing rebuilds either. Calgary's come out and basically said they're not going to be doing that. I've heard Nashville now maybe starting to sell off some things, but some assets, I should say. But I mean, there's a good chance that, and again, with draft luck with the Canucks, as we know in the team's history, it's just not in their favor. But I mean, of all years, they could be getting a franchise player out of this if all goes well in a bad way, and that they don't do very well.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And obviously, I said at the top of the show, I'm a biased prospect guy. So let's go rebuild. It's a great, especially in, top 3 for sure. We basically know, take your pick of who's going to go, but we know who's in the top 3. And, a guy like Ivar Stenberg from Sweden, he's just jumped up the rankings to the fact that some people even think he might go 1. He's having basically the best draft eligible season overseas that you can have, and it's only not even halfway through the season. So he's becoming a real piece. You got Keaton Verhoff, who's by all accounts could be a pretty big, pretty high end defender here. So if Quinn Hughes does end up being traded, maybe he's just maybe he's the knight in shining armor that they get as a consolation prize. If there's going to be a year, there's some strong names in the top 10 this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how, sort of the standings work out at the end. And again, I think the Canucks, the way things are trending, I think they will end up getting one of those picks. Another name that I'm keeping an eye on in the draft just for selfish reasons is Ryan Lynn. He actually went to the academy that my son plays in the local league here in South Delta, but like I see Ryan Lynn's like on the walls there at Planet Ice, because obviously he did the Delta Academy there too, which is interesting. So, well, who knows? Last time they drafted a hometown guy, it didn't go so well, but I think Ryan Lynn does look pretty legit. I was actually watching a bit of him last night at the Prospects game. Right. So
it would be nice too. Like they seem to just kind of dodge Vancouver Giants for whatever reason. They've had a couple opportunities, Cameron Schmidt being the latest last year, and they just, for whatever reason, they just, there was Colton Roberts who now plays with Wilson Bjork over at Colorado College. He was a Vancouver Giant that I thought they had, they could have taken, I believe it went in the 3rd round, whatever round it was, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was a guy that I thought would be a great addition, and they decided not to take him. And so for whatever reason, they decide to always, they kind of fade Vancouver Giants, but yeah, maybe this is the year. They also got Wilson Bjork, who's a recent 5th round draft pick. There's his brother that's in the draft too, who's kind of dropping a little bit. So
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. Speaking of Vancouver Giants, or should say former Vancouver Giants, one of the thoughts is if Hughes does end up leaving, that the Canucks have been targeting Bowen Byram, which I don't think is a terrible option. I mean, he's not going to be Hughes, but that's one thing where, fans kind of look at like who could be somewhat of a replacement for him. Is that something you think to monitor? Because obviously with Buffalo, he signed a shorter deal. I mean, they might not even have to trade for him. He could just, potentially walk into free agency.
Yeah, walk into free agency, or if you want to maybe put together, maybe let's go Alex Tuck, Bowen Byram, couple draft picks, couple prospects. I don't know. Maybe we can get something working there. That's another name. Maybe Pavel Mintyukov over in Anaheim. Maybe that's if you have to get rid of Quinn Hughes, I'm saying maybe that's a defender that you kind of target a little bit. Bowen Byram would be nice. It'd be nice for him to finally find a spot where he is considered
he's the guy. Exactly.
The guy, right? And so he's been looking for that. So maybe, who knows, maybe that is something that they could cook up here.
Yeah, and I think that's another angle, too, that I know some fans are like, oh, that's not the right way to go about it. But they're still younger players. Obviously, they're not going to be Hughes, but it's not a bad second option to get younger guys that are still coming into their own that you could probably even get on like a reasonable contract in the interim. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of ways this could play out, Dave. I mean, we could be having a totally different conversation in a couple months from now, depending on how things go. Before we get out of here, we do have to talk about the game going on tonight. Canucks playing Anaheim. We talked about it there. I'm with you. I mean, there are a few teams around the league that I have to watch their highlights or even tune into the games, and Anaheim is one of them. I love what they're doing. I love that Leo Carlson's coming into his own this year. Like, it's just been fun to watch, and credit to and listen, I know there's some controversy surrounding him, but Joel Quenneville's done a hell of a job with that team. I don't think it's a coincidence that these guys are hitting at the right time. So how badly are the Canucks going to lose tonight, Dave? That's basically my question. No, I'm joking, but what are you expecting from tonight's game?
Yeah, I think their hands are going to be full. Anaheim's they're firing on all cylinders. They're fast, they're fun. So yeah, they're going to be coming hot and heavy. We'll see who starts in net. So if that's Nikita Tolopilo, he's going to have he just faced a back-to-back in San Jose with the Barracuda last week, and it's going to be up quite a bit. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. I expect Anaheim to kind of take it to them this tonight, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and there hasn't been any updates on some of the injuries. Like, as far as I know, Forbert's still out, Bluger's still out. Like, I don't think we're getting any. I know some of them are and then Demko, I haven't heard much either. Like, is there any timeline on his return?
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's why I'm thinking it might be Nikita Tolopilo tonight, which is he's coming. He's
I think it's good.
Back from his.
Let's see what he's made of.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much it. Sink or swim. And he's I do like him. Like, even when in the past 3 years, I've said on many shows and wrote many articles that I actually thought Nikita Tolopilo was the more sound goaltender of the two between him and Seelovs. Obviously, Seelovs was a great goalie and he won a Calder Cup. He's a little bit, he always got a little scrambly, whereas Nikita Tolopilo is very calm and composed between the pipes. Like, you don't see Nikita Tolopilo get rattled. And so that is one thing he's got going for him. So then again, he's never done it at the NHL level. So we'll see see if the Anaheim Ducks can rattle him or not.
Yeah, I'm really interested in tonight's game. Again, a tale of two different franchises, one that did a rebuild, one that didn't, and we're seeing the results of it. Kurt says, my gut says there's no way we get that lucky to grab number one, and that's Canucks will have some weird 10-15 game run. So I really don't, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, Dave, but I don't know, for some reason this year, I just don't think we're going to see that type of crazy run, like a Boudreaux push or anything like that. Like, I think this is what it is. 3 regulation wins, right, or 3 home wins, I should say, this year. I can't remember the last time they've had more than 3 wins in a row this year. Like, it's just not fitting together this year. I don't know.
Yeah, 2. I think it's 2 regulation wins in the last month and a bit. Like, it's tough. It's not a very good team.
Yeah, no, I just think it's going to be difficult. Okay, before we go, Abbotsford, we talked a little bit about it there. I know there's a lot of changeover this year, which it sucks, honestly, because Manny Malhotra, such a great story, such a great season last year. They lose so many players, and then they had to pull up a bunch of players to Vancouver just because of injuries or not being able to fill roster spots. So is there going to be any changes in Abbotsford, or is this just kind of what they have, and they're going to have to work with it, and Manny's going to have to work his magic?
Yeah, I think at this point they've made so many signings. I think I haven't checked in since last week, but I know I put it out there that they're now just 2 players short of the entire number of players that they used in all of last season. They've signed so many players, just like come in and help, and nothing's worked because they're all ECHL / AHL hopefuls, and so I think this is just what it is. They're going to get a couple players back, hopefully. Like even a Baines right now would just be amazing. Max Hassan is obviously, he might not come back down. So I think it just is what it is. They've got some really nice pieces. Like Sawyer Minio has been a fantastic story down in Abbotsford.
Yeah.
All the defensemen he started the year as a third pairing, 20-year-old guy in his first AHL stint. And then pretty quickly went up to, he was skating almost 27 minutes a night at some point. And even with guys like Kirill Kudryavtsev coming back and Victor Mancini, he's still the go-to guy on PP1, penalty kill. And so Sawyer Minio has held down the fort and has been a pretty good story. But other than that, it's been tough. It's been, I've been grinding through these games basically to provide the
doing the Lord's work,
and,
Dave.
Yeah. It sucks. Like you said, it does suck. They're coming off such a positive story for the entire organization last year, and then they're left to this. So it sucks. But I just think, who knows if a rebuild happens, maybe they'll get some fun players coming through in the next couple of years. So.
Yeah, and fingers crossed they're not trading any of these prospects. Like you mentioned Sawyer Minio, I know his name was kind of floating around as maybe someone, because they have a lot of defensive prospects, but I say keep them, develop them, and then when the time comes when you do need to maybe get like an everyday, like young, established player, if those are even available, then maybe you have those conversations. But I like a lot of what the management group has done, and that's the thing, like we talked about this before, like say what you want about all the mistakes they've made. They've done a pretty good job of drafting and developing this pipeline compared to the Benning era. And granted, to Benning's credit, I mean, they had half that team in Utica for most of the time he was there, and that made things difficult. But I just think the drafting's been better. The prospect line has been so much better than it was under Jim Benning, in my opinion. So,
I mean, as someone who watches even our 7th round picks, or the Vancouver Canucks 7th round picks, I can say like even the 5th round picks have some intrigue. Like Wilson Bjork is a very intriguing player to me. Every time I watch him, I'm left like, wow, there's something about this kid. So even their 4th, 5th, 7th, 6th round picks, like they're doing a fantastic job. Like full credit has to be given to Todd Harvey and his team, because they're going a little bit outside the box, I think, as well, and taking names that even myself I don't really expect. And so going forward, I'm going to have to change up the way that I think about who they're going to pick, because they just keep going off the board, and credit to them that they seem to know what they're doing. So are they NHL players at the end of the day? Who knows? They're 6th round picks, but at the very least, they're intriguing options for the depth chart in Abbotsford. So
Dave, you're the best. Thanks again for doing this. We'll definitely get you on, and maybe, like I said, maybe we will be having a totally different conversation in a month or so, or whenever we come back on. Hopefully for the better. Let people know where they can find you on social media. Anything you got coming up for Canucks Army? You're doing some great work over there.
Just plugging along with Blackfish and the Farmies for Abbotsford, and then just doing some features every once in a while. We got World Juniors coming up. There could be a couple of good names for that. We got Braden Coots, who we hope to be announced in the next couple of days here, that he's going to at least camp. We'll see. Obviously, his work's cut out for him. But got Wilson Bjork. He'll be on Team Sweden, and Basil Sansonen. So I'll be covering that. But other than that, just keeping up with all the grind that is the prospect system. So you can find me on Twitter, Dave Hall 1289, and I basically just everything prospects. So.
Yeah, and even Michael Bublé is reading his stuff over there at Canucks Army there, as we can tell. Dave, thanks a lot. You're the best. We'll talk soon, man. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks so much.
There you go. Dave Hall from Canucks Army. Go check him out. I wasn't joking about that. Michael Bublé actually made a comment on one of the Canucks Army things, the famous singer. He's a big Canucks fan. Defending management, which, I think fans were kind of annoyed with that, because there have been a lot of mistakes by management, but I don't know. I'm in the minority here. I think this management group has done a lot better of a job than the Jim Benning era. And, I would give them a little bit more rope as far as like what they can do. Cause there's even some talk now about like this management team doesn't even deserve to train Quinn Hughes. Okay, well then who's in the waiting? Like who's out there that's better than this management group? Like it's not exactly like easy. Again, they've made mistakes, but I would keep this management group a bit longer. They've done a good job developing prospects. I'm of the, pro, let's see what, Alvin, and obviously Rutherford doesn't have much time left, but you can get another president, keep Alvin in there, and they'll figure it out there. So yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. We'll stay on here just a couple more minutes. Going to have a look at the NHL schedule for tonight. I mentioned Anaheim and Vancouver. That's a game you want to keep an eye on. We got a bunch of games on the slate here today. Check this out. Let's go have a quick look here. So you can see the Rangers and the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes, obviously one of the top teams in the East. I think the Rangers have been doing a little bit better. Let's go have a quick look at the standings here as we kind of take a look at everything we got, because it does change every week. as far as the overall standings. I like doing the actual conference standings. That to me is the one that tells you that. So yeah, no, Rangers still 500, like a lot of these other teams. Look at this. The Leafs have less points than the Buffalo Sabres. This is my thing to the Canucks fans out there. If you're watching this, like, it could be worse, right? The Canucks were best case scenario make the playoffs. The Leafs, they're supposed to be a cup contender even with them losing Marner, and they're last in the league right now. And I know they've had injuries, but you got to be a little bit worried if you're the Leafs. And then on the Western Conference, the Oilers are, again, at 500 right now, 25 points. They're not too far off from a playoff spot, but they need a goalie badly. Nashville, 16 points on the year. I mean, look at that difference there between 16 and 21. In the East. So Nashville right now in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes. Look at the goal differential here, minus 29. Is that the league? Yeah, it must be right there. So pretty tough there. And then Calgary and Vancouver just, filling up the decks on the Titanic, so to speak, with everything that's going on there. The Sabres and the Penguins. Again, Penguins playing quite well. Jets and Capitals, Bruins and Islanders. Matthew Schaefer, is he going to make the Olympic team? He's certainly making a push for it. Excited to see that. You got the Leafs and the Blue Jackets. Can the Leafs get back on the winning track? You've got the Flyers and Panthers. That'll be a fun one. Panthers at home. Where are the Panthers now? I feel like they're playing a little bit better. They're doing okay. 25 points. So they're tied with Philly. They will be getting some guys back here pretty soon. The Blues and the Devils, Wild and the Blackhawks, Sharks and Avalanche. That's going to be a great tilt there. Again, the Sharks, one of the young teams you got to watch. And then we got the Senators and the Golden Knights. So, yeah, a lot of good matchups on tilt tonight. And then kind of looking ahead, we got the same thing on Friday with obviously American Thanksgiving coming up. So, lots of good games on the docket there. So, that's everything I got here for today, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in. You can give me a follow on Twitter or X at Lynch on Sports. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. I will see you guys next Wednesday. Maybe we'll get Avery back on to talk about the Oilers. They could have a new goaltender by this time next week. So keep tabs on that. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll see you guys next week. This is the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys next week.